Hello everyone, this is NeverNed, and today will be the first of many videos talking about Monotype Premier League 12. So, in today's video we'll be doing a brief overview talking about every single game and also live commentating all of them, and giving some insight as to the progression of the meta, as well as some other things that may be unusual or some really well-played moments as well. But yeah, as you can see, first game we're going to watch is going to be between Seraphz and Tarre 25. And as you can see from the matchup, this does not look very good for Seraphz, especially since it looks like it is a sandless ground team, so he can't even try to contest the rain. But it is possible with some proper Clodsire usage and wearing down all the Pokemon appropriately. And Tinglu is a very powerful mon at getting those hazards up. And it looks like Tarre's team also lacks hazard removal, so if we can get some good hazard play and some really good switches, as well as proper management of both of his walls, we might see a potential comeback here. But it is definitely not in Seraph's favor, so let's get into the match. So, we have Hisuian Samurott lead, instantly getting those spikes up, but the Rocky Helmet does put in a little bit of chip. We have the Toxic Spikes on Quagsire coming out, which will unfortunately be removed by Toxic Picks once that thing comes in, because Toxic Picks is a pretty free switch here. You see the instant close combat, getting rid of the Hisuian Samurott, as Pelipper will now come in and start wreaking havoc on, and the rain will start wreaking havoc on Seraph's team now. See the Toxapex come in and instantly remove the Toxic Spikes. Primarina swaps in immediately after, as the Spikes now come down. Moonblast is used since it is assumed that Clodsire probably has Water Absorb. Moonblast does very little damage, and Poison Jab does a ton to Primarina, which is very brutal. As we do see some hazards getting laid down. Psychic Noise is brought out though, so the Primarina is not Liquid Voice, and unfortunately Clodsire will not be able to heal from its leftovers. As Urshifu does come out, and Gliscor is put in, the close combat coming into it and not doing that much damage. A very good read by Seraphz there, very risky but worth it, seemed to be worth at the time. Pelipper comes back in, putting up the rain, as we see a knockoff come through on the side of Seraphz. Ice Beam coming in to try and one-hit KO the Gliscor, but unfortunately coming up just a little bit short. Roost is used by Tarre 25 to keep Pelipper healthy, as Seraphz tries to go for Protect to instantly get some healing back, and to try and preserve the Gliscor in case of a subsequent Ice Beam. Iron Treads comes in to take the Ice Beam, as Rapid Spin is used, now getting rid of the hazards that Hisuian Samurott put up, making it much easier for Seraphz to switch in his walls. Iron Treads, common mishap, Seraphz forgot that Urshifu's hidden stability does not allow Protect to work, and because of that he does end up losing his Iron Treads, which was one of his few ice type switch-ins. It's okay though, because Clodsire does come in and is able to take the Ice Beams pretty well. But we do see Tinglu come in now, as the rain turns keep ticking down, and Pelipper's health as well seems to be ticking down, as we have one turn of rain, but the turn of rain will be wasted on Toxapex as the rocks come down. The rocks now doing a lot of chip damage. Primarina being gone is also really brutal for the team, as Urshifu does take a ton of damage from the Earthquake. Quagsire comes in. It takes 41%, so unfortunately... Oh! But because of the Rocky Helmet, the KO goes through, getting rid of a really big threat for Seraph's team. And now it is only Kingdra to try and sweep the entirety of Seraph's team. As Toxapex does come in, takes the close combat very easily. The eject button does finally pop, as Pelipper comes back in. Probably looking to U-turn into Kingdra to try and wreak some havoc. But because Clodsire is still alive and healthy, it's going to be very hard for Kingdra to do anything. As we do see an Ice Beam come through, Poison Jab going through as well, as the Toxic is slowly putting Pelipper on a timer. Pelipper going to be taking a lot of chip damage from the Seraphz next time it comes in, as the P-Jab comes through again from Seraph's Clodsire. Kingdra brutally missing a Draco Meteor, which could have potentially been game-winning. But Tinglu is swapped in as a response. And yeah, just like that, the game is over. And as I said, Seraphz was able to pull through in this otherwise really brutal matchup, even with some minor misplays. But yeah, well done to Seraphz for winning this matchup. As I said, not being able to contest the Rain, and also just the brutality of Rain in general, makes this matchup very hard, especially with Hisui and Samurot's hazards. But Seraphz just played this game incredibly well, just making sure to play to his win condition, getting up those spikes, keeping Clodsire healthy, and they were just able to completely outplay the Rain Water team, which was very well done by Seraphz. So good job to him. And let's move on to the next match. Well, before we move on to the next match, just to comment on these teams. Sandless Ground was something that was catching on during MWP, and we have seen it in a Mono Cup a couple of times as well. So this isn't too unusual, since Sandless Ground does just have a good blanket matchups against a lot of types, specifically Dragon and Dark. And as you can see, it can also potentially beat Water. So it's a very good blindable type if your opponent has like no known types that they prefer. That being said, though, Tarre's team could have potentially put Seraph's team in, well, for lack of a better term, in the water, but yeah, Tarre was not able to break through Seraph's solid defensive Pokemon and just solid play in general. And the Rain team that Tarre is using is also not too unusual. Eject Button Toxapex is very common on Rain teams. And I believe that your Shifu might have been choice banned. And choice banner Shifu is actually a thing that's been catching on recently a lot as well, so... And choice banner Shifu is also extremely hard to switch in on, but Clodsire is one of the few things that can still switch into it. Even with especially defensive investment, Clodsire can just easily tank those hits, due to it resisting close combat and being immune to water, to its Searching Strikes, due to the fact that it has Water Absorb. But yeah. Losing the Primarina and Primarina early was the main bad thing that happened in this match, but yeah, just very well played to Seraphz, and let's move on to the next match. So we got Aesir versus Twinkay. Twinkay opting for a Dragon team with Latios. We've been seeing a lot of these recently, as you know from my metagame preview. We see Hydreigon on both Dragon teams, as well as, so yes, both sides are using Dragon. Twinkay opting for a Latios team with Hydreigon and Garchomp, while Aesir is using a Hydreigon team as well, but opting for Latias instead, as well as Kyurem. As I mentioned before, Hydreigon just seems to be another dragon to form like a constant drop Draco core, but I haven't yet seen or at least been told what the main reason for its rise has been yet, so we'll just have to see how these games play out, and maybe we can see why Hydreigon is beginning to catch on. It could have something to do with Ghost, but I'm not entirely sure. So both sides lead Dragapult, since it is probably the best lead here. Aesir does a good thing and predicts that Twinkay's Dragapult is physical, and immediately puts into Archaludon. Stealth Rocks has been put up, and instantly Twinkay cripples the Goodra. But unfortunately, a critical hit Dragon Tail is going to make it impossible for Latios to come back in on Twinkay's side, so this is actually not very good for Twinkay, as we do see the Hydreigon get brought out by the Dragon Tail. Stealth Rock damage slowly piling up, as we do see the Substitute come out. Substitute coming out again, as we do see a Dark Pulse come out from inside of Twinkay. A Lucky Flinch does allow Kyurem to get 2-hit KO'd here, as it is swapped out for Hisui and Goodra. The leftover ceiling slowly doing its work, as we do see more Dark Pulses coming out, and the Dark Pulse will KO the Goodra here, unless Twinkay decides to try and greed for another substitute. Twinkay is looking like Twinkay is trying to get a cheeky Dragon Tail miss on the with the subsequent substitutes. Sorry, but yeah, unfortunately he does not get the miss that he's looking for and will end up KOing the Dragapult. Hydreigon on very low HP, but it looks like it may have served its purpose as it is now sacked to the Dragapult by Twinkay, and Twinkay now puts in their own Archaludon. The Archaludon using Flash Cannon, confirmed leftover, so it's still the bulky set and not Choice Scarf. Latios gets KO'd by the rocks intentionally, as we do see the Earth Power revealed from Aesir's Hydreigon. Kyurem is swapped into Twinkay's Dragapult, as the Dragon Darts will get the KO. Now it looks like they are not going to try for the Speed Tie. Twinkay is going to go immediately into Archaludon, who will gladly take 2 Dragon Darts and get its stamina boost up. Hydreigon now comes in, but it can be KO'd. Yes, it is KO'd by Twinkay's Archaludon with Draco Meteor. As we do see the Latias come in now. Hisuian Goodra comes in as Latias gets the trick off on Hisuian Goodra. Archaludon comes in, but is going to take a Dragon Tail, as Dragapult, the physical Dragapult, is brought in. Archaludon going to get worn down pretty significantly by these 2 Dragon Darts, but it does get a KO. Dragon Darts being used again, unfortunately not getting the crit that Aesir may have been looking for, as Dragapult is now KO'd by Archaludon. Aesir now putting in Latias, as we see the Healing Wish come out and fully heal the Archaludon. The special threats are gone, so I'm not sure if maybe Aesir may have a... No, it's very unlikely that it's an ID body press set. But we are seeing multiple flash cannons used. Archaludon does have no recovery though, besides the leftovers, so it's going to be a little bit difficult for Aesir to bring this back. But let's see if the Archaludon is just tanky enough to deal with it. It looks like it might be, as it does take the 2 Dragon Darts pretty well. Thunder Wave is used, slowing down the Dragapult. Aesir may have also been looking for a Para to potentially allow him to get some more healing off with leftovers, but the Flash Cannon will go through. Archaludon now at full stacks of defense. It is outsped, but it does not matter since it is 4 times defense, and now Archaludon was able to bring the entire game back, because Aesir managed to kill both of Twinkay's special threats, making it very easy for Archaludon to be a late game win condition. Very well played by Aesir, because it did not look like they were going to win after losing that many Pokemon, but they played through their win condition and just generally did very well. Comments on Hydreigon right now, I'm still not entirely sure what this mon is doing specifically. It very well might have to do something with its access to Earth Power, because in the past, its access to Earth Power has been the main reason it's been used on both Dark and Dragon. As it's a rare special attacker on both of those types historically that has access to strong dual stabs and also Earth Power, which is important for KOing stuff like Heatran, which typically is a problem for Dragon teams to deal with. And they usually leave it to Garchomp, but Garchomp can get burnt, Garchomp can get baited out, and it's also 4 times weak to Ice Boost. Hydreigon might be just a better solution for that. I'm not sure. We'll see in more games, hopefully. But yeah. Well played to Aesir. Let's move on to the next match. We have Sagazinha versus DugZa, and Sagazinha is bringing the Broken Fairy type from MWP into a Dragon team. So this actually isn't as one-sided as you would think, just looking at the team comps, due to the fact that Raging Bolt is just incredibly powerful here, and a double Steel Core of of DugZa's Dragon team will still be extremely hard for Fairy to break, even with Iron Valiant, and Sagazinha seems to be using a Tinkaton team, which is typically better against balanced teams instead of the offensive team that Dragon is, or I guess bulky offense team that Dragon is. And Garchomp is also not helping as well. But yeah, we'll see how this matchup goes. But for those of you who do remember how MVP went, Fairy kind of dominated. It dominated in win rate, not so much in play rate, but we'll see how it does. This matchup is pretty even though, I would say. Pre-Arena led as Goodra does come out. Heavy Slam is used. Tinkaton will be taking the Hisuian Goodra's leftovers. So now Hisuian Goodra is now much easier to wear down, as the knockoff does come through, and removes the leftovers from Tinkaton. Tinkaton looks to do Thunder Wave, but Raging Bolt is put in. Raging Bolt losing its Heavy Duty boots, and Thunderbolting the Tinkaton. Fluttermane now comes out as a response, but the Thunderbolt does a ton of damage to Fluttermane. And yeah, Sagazinha is beginning to see the power of Raging Bolt and its general stab power, as we do see the Hatterene come out. Goodra does come in, Heavy Slam going through, as Klefki is looking to get those screens up. Raging Bolt coming in as a response, as we do get a spike set up by the Klefki. Trick Room is now gone as Klefki gets up more spikes. Remember, this is one of Dragon's biggest weaknesses, is its lack of hazard removal, as Fluttermane does come in and is able to take the Thunderclap, and DugZa does not want to lose their Raging Bolt just yet. So Goodra comes in. Remember, Goodra can't recover anymore because it lost its leftovers, as we see the Primarina easily tank the Heavy Slam thanks to Reflect. Protect is used by Goodra, and the light screen does wear off due to the previous knockoff, as we do see Goodra use knockoff and removes the Primarina's choice specs. Very bad for it, since it make it harder to OHKO some Pokemon. But yes, we do see Raging Bolt come back. Klefki is gone, so we don't have anything that can soften the blow of these Thunderbolts and subsequent Thunderclaps. The Thunderbolt does a ton of damage to Hatterene. Hatterene opting for the Draining Kiss, as DugZa does not go for the Thunderclap. Archaludon coming in and can easily KO Hatterene if it has Heavy Slam. Fortunately, it does have Flash Cannon, so it's a bit harder. The special defense drop could be helpful in the future, but Hatterene will recover all of its HP. As the Healing Wish does come out from DugZa, ideally going to go onto Archaludon, as Dragapult does use the Phantom Force. Yes, the Phantom Force will probably get the KO here because Dragapult is likely a choice band. Yep, the KO is gotten. Hatterene comes in. Trick Room is used, but it's very doubtful that it will survive, as the Phantom Force does connect, and DugZa wins the match. As I said, this is a very even matchup because of the double steel core, and yeah, generally Raging Bolt is just super powerful against this Fairy team, and it was very easy for them to get overwhelmed because of that fact. Without the screens, the team isn't durable enough to really take Raging Bolt's onslaught of electric type attacks, and yeah, it's just an unfortunate debut for Fairy in this tournament, but it is what it is. Brutal that it happened to be Dragon that dealt the finishing first blow to Fairy, but it is what it is. DugZa's team is relatively standard. Healing Wish Latias with 3 offensive threats and the dual steel combo. Sega's team is actually relatively, I wouldn't say super standard. It's a Klefki Tinkaton team, which isn't really super common. Usually they aren't brought on the same team, but it seems like Sagazinha thought that this would be ideal. Unfortunately, the steel core for Dragon is just too strong and hard to break through, and Raging Bolt is just a very strong mon that can easily tear through the type without screens. So, with that being said, let's move on to the next match. We have Eternal Spirit versus Leafium Z. Actually played against Leafium Z recently, so this is going to be exciting to watch. Eternal Spirit looking to use a Steel team with Scizor. I've been actually seeing this a lot recently on the ladder, or the higher tier ladder players have been using Scizor a lot on Steel teams, and I'm not exactly sure why I've been seeing it a lot, but it seems like Scizor is making a comeback on the Steel teams. And Leafium Z's flying team is relatively standard fare, double Iron Birds with two Electric Immunities and Dragonites and Tornadus Therian. Surprising lack of Enamorus on this team, because usually Enamorus or Galarian Moltres would go on a team like this, but it seems like they thought Tornadus team would be a lot better, so let's see how this match goes. It seems like this may be a very long game, though. Just looking at that flying team makes me very nervous, but hopefully this game does not go for too long. Okay, we open up with Archaludon versus Tornadus Therian. Easily predicts the Thunder Wave on the Qwily side, as the knockoff is used and removes the leftovers from Archaludon. Archaludon is stacking up those stamina boosts as the Dragon Meteor comes through, only doing a whopping 47 to the Gliscor. As Protect is used, the subsequent Body Press not doing any damage, as Leafium Z looks to continue wearing down the Archaludon slowly. Archaludon doing very little damage to Leafium Z's Gliscor. But here comes the biggest Gliscor threats, Iron Treads. It appears that Leafium Z might not have something to deal, might not have knockoff on the Gliscor set, so it does opt to recover and leave with 88% HP, as the Iron Treads will remove the leftovers from Corviknight. Corviknight looking to roost off the damage that was just given to it, as Gholdengo comes in. Gholdengo getting a very critical hit with a Shadow Ball there, doing a lot of damage to Corviknight, which is not good for Leafium Z, as the rocks will also wear it down slowly. In comes Gliscor again, as the Draco Meteor does 52%. Gliscor is going to heal some of that back, and the subsequent Protect will allow Leafium Z to get 48% back as well. Archaludon not really going to be able to do much against the Gliscor. Definitely looking to just wear it down as much as possible, though, as we do see, yes, the Iron Treads comes in on the predicted Earthquake/Protect, as now Leafium Z is in a little bit of trouble. Ice Spinner on the Iron Treads does threaten out the Gliscor, and Skarmory will come in as a response. Eternal Spirit easily predicts the Skarmory switch-in and knocks off the Rocky Helmet, which is very important. Unfortunately, it now has to deal with Spikes, which means that Archaludon probably isn't going to have a good time. Corviknight is KO'd though, which is very important, as it means that Leafium Z has fewer switch-ins now to the Gholdengo. As we do see Flamethrower on the Heatran. Heatran is Choice Scarf, which means it is not going to have any utility moves whatsoever. Choice Scarf Heatran, not super common, by the way, so this is definitely a nice thing to see. Heavy Duty Boots removed from the Dragonite, but unfortunately, Eternal Spirit is going to lose the Air Balloon, which is actually incredibly important because he needed that Air Balloon to deal with not only just Gliscor, but also Landorus Therian as well. But yeah, here comes the Shadow Ball from Gholdengo, actually KOing the Gliscor, so all the chip damage done previously has come to this moment. Gliscor finally being down means that Leafium Z's team can start falling apart a bit quicker, as we do see the Heatran take the Bleakwind Storm from Tornadus. Unfortunately, Leafium Z just isn't able to hit that second one, which is very bad, as now he loses his Tornadus, and Heatran does get KO'd by the subsequent Stone Edge. Iron Treads does come out, but it looks like the Landorus may not have been Choice Scarf. We see Skarmory come in again, but Skarmory is easily KO'd by the Gholdengo. I'm actually not sure what set the Gholdengo is. I assume it's Choice Scarf, but I think it might be Specs, because it's hitting a bit hard. Even though I know that one last hit was definitely because of the crit, but yeah. Yeah, Earthquake is blocked by... Yeah, and I think Corviknight does have this in the bag now, as, yeah, Brave Bird goes through, and Landorus Therian can't really touch this thing, so yeah. And that's it. Well done to Eternal Spirit for winning this matchup. We unfortunately did not get to see Scizor do anything, but Scizor was probably just insurance, just in case. The Gholdengo did a lot of good things here, so maybe the Gholdengo is why the Hydreigon is being brought a lot on Dragon. Maybe that's the case, especially since there's a substitute set, so that's probably being used to counter the Gholdengo sets that are T-Wave specifically, as I do think Gholdengo is probably a little helpless against that sort of set. So yeah. But yeah, nothing of note to say for this match. Just pretty standard teams. Scizor just making a comeback on Steel, it appears, because we did see that in Mono Cup and the seasonals as well. So it's nice to see Scizor back. Choice Scarf Heatran is an unusual bring, but it's unusual for tournaments, not so much for ladder. I've definitely seen this set a lot on Steel before, but it's usually not brought in tournament play because it's not super consistent, but in this particular matchup, it seems to be pretty good. So, well done to Eternal Spirit. Next match. Alright, we have Floss versus Losco. Losco is bringing a Dragon team with Combo on it, while Floss is using a Steel team with, again, Scizor. It's actually the exact... I wouldn't say it's the exact same team that was brought before, but yeah, it is very... Actually, hold on. Never mind. Yeah. Very solid teams on both sides. I actually don't know how this may go, because Combo is supposed to be very good against Steel, but it depends on the set as well, because some sets can get absolutely walled by Gholdengo, and then other sets can just completely destroy Gholdengo. I don't know, we'll have to see. Depending on the combo set, this match could be very easy or very difficult for Losco. Alright, Hisuian Goodra is brought in after Dragapult baits out the Archelodon Draco Meteor. Knockoff is used by Losco to remove the Skarmory Rocket Helmet immediately. Still doing a decent amount of chip damage back to it, but Skarmory now lacking an item. As we see, the Dragapult is special instead of physical, so Skarmory will be sacked here, but it does get up 2 Crucial Spikes, which could be very important for the rest of this match, as remember, Dragon's weakness is entry hazards. As you can see, Hisuian Goodra is getting worn down very easily by the Archelodon because of that Spikes damage. As the subsequent Draco Meteor is going to be blocked by Protect. Now, unfortunately, the 2-hit KO cannot happen, as the knockoff is used and removes Iron Treads' Expert Belt. Unusual item, but not particularly weird or strange, I would say. Definitely not the usual item you would bring on Iron Treads, though, as Iron Treads does get the KO onto Hisuian Goodra, which is very good for Gholdengo, as the the Shadow Ball from Dragapult will end up 2-hit KOing the Heatran. Archelodon comes in to take the subsequent Draco Meteor, or not Draco Meteor, Shadow Ball, sorry, but Floss's Archelodon is able to get a ton of damage on Losco's Archelodon, and Losco's Archelodon will fall as a result due to the spikes, just making it impossible for it to come back in. Como is Flamethrower, so it doesn't get super hard walled by Gholdengo here. Unfortunately, Gholdengo is Recover, so Como is unable to do enough to it, but thankfully the Como was able to bait out a Thunder Wave, which allows Losco to get a free Calm Mind on Raging Bolt, and now is looking to start wreaking havoc. Unfortunately, Floss easily predicts this and gets the Ice Spinner off on Iron Treads, as Iron Treads will get KO'd by the Draco Meteor due to Raging Bolt's overwhelming power. Thunderclap is used, likely because Losco's set is slower than the average Archelodon, which is pretty common. There are some Raging Bolt sets that outspeed it, but unfortunately this one does not seem to be one of those. As we do see the Dragapult get a ton of damage on the Gholdengo. The Hex from the Floss's Gholdengo will KO though, as Latios is brought in, KOs the Gholdengo, And now Scizor comes in. Now Scizor is going to get a couple of sword stances, and yeah, it's just very hard for Losco to switch in here. Combo does get swapped in, but it is not able to take the Bullet Punch. It's bulletproof, but Bullet Punch is not a bullet move. I know, false advertising, but it is unfortunate. But yeah. Late game cleanup by Scizor. Well done by Floss, playing this, I would say, almost perfectly. Just got up the hazards that he needed against the Dragon team, and as I said before, Dragon's biggest issue is dealing with hazards. I'm going to drill that into everyone's heads because a lot of people, a lot of newer players on ladder struggle to deal with Dragon and they think that the type has no weaknesses. But this is a very notable weakness that Dragon has, is that it can't deal with hazard stack teams very well. It's still really strong in spite of that, but it will just fall apart very easily to well-played hazard stack teams. Now, granted, this team that Floss is using isn't really a hazard stack team, it just has hazards, but it is definitely a better team at utilizing hazards than most average teams that you'll see up the ladder. But yeah, let's move on to the next match. We have Scarfire versus Clean. Scarfire opting to use a fairy team. Seems like my favorite propaganda they have gotten to everyone. And Clean will be using Steel. This is definitely going to be very brutal for the fairy team to deal with, since Scizor is one of Fairy's biggest threats. And looks like Scarfire opted for a little bit of Ninetales as the screen setter instead of Qwily, which in this specific matchup is not going to be very good because of the fact that Scizor can kind of just hit it first and also just hit it before it can get up its screens. Even with the defense boost from Hail, it's not going to do enough. So we'll see how this matchup goes. It could be winnable for Scarfire because Fluttermane is a ridiculous Pokemon, but we have to see how it gets past the Scizor first. Primarina leads, but Ninetales is brought in as a response. Ninetales is faster than Iron Treads, so the overall veil will go up. Hatterene is brought in, but reflects the magic bounce back. Fortunately, Gholdengo's good as gold makes it impossible for it to get paralyzed by its own thing. As we do see the Make It Rain come out, doing half of Fluttermane's health. Fluttermane opting for Substitute, but immediately switches out into Primarina. Primarina using Hydro Pump and instantly getting Skarmory down to its 30. Hatterene coming back in, likely to prevent any sort of last-ditch effort for hazards. As Heatran comes in as a result, Hatterene using Trick Room. Primarina coming back in, and Primarina is probably going to make very good use of this Trick Room, as we do see the Sparkling Aria KO the Skarmory. Gholdengo now comes in, Sparkling Aria doing a ton of damage to them, as Gholdengo is able to get the KO on Primarina. Fluttermane comes in. Heatran taking a hefty amount of damage from the Fluttermane Shadow Ball. As Heatran does outspeed, it looks like the Heatran might be Choice Scarf. Tinkaton comes in, but swaps out into Iron Valiant. Iron Valiant going to take a ton of damage from the Scizor Bullet Punch, so Tinkaton comes in to take it. Muscle Band is taken from the Scizor as Foul Play is used. Foul Play probably the tool that Scarfire was going to use to try and counter the Scizor, but unfortunately Scizor is able to get the 2-hit KO with the Bullet Punch, and yeah, that will be it for the match. No. But yeah, that will be it, because Scizor just cleans. Yeah, unfortunate debut for Fairy in this tournament. It looks like people are starting to prepare for it a little bit more. And it's unfortunate because Scizor is a metagame trend, but I don't think Fairy was the reason why it's being brought. It definitely destroys Fairy a lot better than a lot of the other mons on Steel, but yeah, it's unfortunate that this metagame trend looks to be bringing down Fairy's viability quite a bit. Next match we have is Rio Vidal versus ArkenCiel. ArkenCiel is using a Sun-Fire team with the same 6 Pokemon. And Rio Vidal is using a Steel team. Very brutal matchup for Rio Vidal that we have, especially with Scizor. on the team, and again, we've seen a lot more Scizor, so yeah. Let's just see how this goes. I have a feeling about how this match is going to go, but let's just see how it goes. So, Archaludon is immediately swapped out for Gholdengo, as Gholdengo just gets... Oh, doesn't get 2-hit KO'd. That was a very brutal low roll for ArkenCiel, losing the Balloon and getting a special defense drop because of it. But Gholdengo does go down. Here comes Iron Treads. Iron Treads doing a little bit of damage with... Ooh, the crit on the Ivy Cudgel. Oh, but the lack of leftovers. The lack of leftovers proves that that set was actually Choice Scarf the entire time. So very good awareness by ArkenCiel there. As we do see the Healing Wish go through, and it's probably going to be put on Ogerpon once it comes back in. High Jump Kick used by Cinderace, as it breaks the Rocky Helmet on the Skarmory. Pyro Ball followed up with subsequently to get the KO. And yes, it is indeed Choice Scarf Archaludon, as it does get KO'd. Ogerpon healing to full. Do we see the Sword Stance? Yep, we see the Sword Stance, and that should be it. Yes, Bullet Punch doing very little damage. Scizor getting full 1-hit KO'd, and I don't think there's much Rio Vidal can really do here. Oh, never mind. The Choice Scarf Archaludon actually saving him from getting swept by that Mon, but Rio Vidal needs to survive the next couple of turns in order to make use of it. Oh, the Heatran coming in. Or the Earth Power going through on Heatran, but missing on the... But yeah, the Ivy Cudgel does come through again as another crit, but the crit didn't matter this time around, as we do see the Archaludon come back out. And now Heatran comes back in, as Ogerpon Hearthwind is doubled in to match, and yes. Oh, the Ivy Cudgel actually not doing that much to the Heatran, probably because it doesn't have a Sword Stance, and no crit will make this a little bit brutal. But yes. And for those of you who are confused, the Ogerpon has Mold Breaker, so that's why Heatran's thing doesn't work. We are going to see the Foul Play, Choice Scarf Foul Play on Rio Vidal, but yeah, that will not be enough. As the Quiver Dance will go through. But yeah. Unfortunate, this was actually a lot closer than I thought it would be. But yeah, the Choice Scarf Archaludon, a set that's usually not looked at too positively, but in this specific matchup, it actually pulled through quite a bit, actually preventing Ogerpon from just clicking Ivy Cudgel 6 times in a row and just stomping the entire team. This set actually allowed them to have a fighting chance. Now, unfortunately, Rio Vidal still wasn't able to pull through because the fire is just that brutal to deal with that steel. But pretty well played by Rio Vidal. Almost got the W, but unfortunately, it just wasn't enough damage on the Ogerpon. The Ogerpon was just not worn down enough, and of course, Ninetales Healing Wish just made it very hard for Rio Vidal to get some good positioning on it. So, yeah, unfortunate, but still well played to Rio Vidal. But yeah, congrats to ArkenCiel for winning this match. Let's move on to the next one. Alright, next match is between Dieu, Amphibien, and Masskeauuu. Masskeauuu is using a... Am I seeing this right? An Iron Jugulis on his Dragon team? Or not Dragon team, but Flying team. We see an Iron Jugulis Flying team with Zapdos Galar. Very, very unique team here. And we see Dieu Amphibien bringing a Rain team with Hitsune and Samurott. Seems like it's a bulky Rain team as well, since it has Swampert as well. But yeah. Unfortunately for Masskeauuu, I believe that they will completely lose this match because of the fact that the Rain team kind of just completely washes the entire team, especially with its offensive pressure. Unless it is the Fat Dragonite set, then maybe Masskeauuu has a chance, but we'll see. Alright, Pelipper is led, and the Rain immediately comes down. Iron Jugulis looking to knock off, and it immediately gets the knockoff on the eject button. Hurricane is used and gets the confusion on Toxapex. We're off to a great start for Masskeauuu. Swampert comes in. Hurricane will be doing a lot of damage to Swampert again, or not that much damage actually. But the knockoff will come through and remove the leftovers as the rocks are now put down. Hurricane being used again, as Flip Turn is used, doing a ton of damage to Iron Jugulus. Masskeauuu coming in, but with little rain, as Dragonite will take the Flip Turn. Looks like it may potentially be the bulky set, but we'll see. As Corviknight comes in to try and take whatever Keldeo is dishing out. Unfortunately, the 50% damage from Surf will not be something that Corviknight can deal with, as Dragonite does come back out to deal with it. Dragonite looks to be the bulky set, so it will be able to tank those Surfs very well, as it now is healed to full and has its multi-scale back intact. Pelipper will set the rain back though, as Corviknight comes in as a response. The U-turn is used, and brings in Masskeauuu. Masskeauuu now having 3 turns of free rain. Dragonite coming in though, as Flip Turn is used. Keldeo coming back in again, likely going to use Icy Wind this time around. Yes, the Icy Wind is used, and Gliscor is removed from the match. Corviknight comes back out, as Masskeauuu comes back in. The Icy Wind maybe not doing enough damage to Corviknight, and that is why Amphibian switches out. Liquidation doing only 49%. As Corviknight uses its Defog to remove the rocks and make it easier for Masskeauuu to switch around. Skarmory comes back out as, or not back out, but Skarmory comes in as Liquidation does a measly 37% to it on both hits, and Rocky Helmet does bring Masskeauuu down by quite a bit of HP. Skarmory, Masskeauuu looking for the Tempo Rocks, but unfortunately those rocks will end up costing him, as now S2 Amphibian ended up staying in. We see the Draco Meteor from Dragonite come out, as the Ice Beam, ooh, and a Freeze may seal Masskeauu's fate. As, yeah, that Freeze is actually really bad, but Corviknight comes in to the Keldeo. Keldeo is going to click Surf, and I believe that should be it, since due to Dragonite being frozen, there's not really anything that can switch into water moves right now. Zapdos Galar coming in, doing massive damage with its Brave Bird. Pelipper comes in, and Zapdos Galar should be able to get the KO, but the Swampert comes in instead, as Dragonite is looking to thaw, but Dragonite will not thaw out and will get KO'd by the Swampert. Masskeauuu now coming in, and there's nothing that can stop it. So, yeah. Yeah, unfortunate freeze, not allowing Masskeauuu to win that match, but it is what it is. That is how Pokemon be sometimes. But yeah, Masskeauu's team is actually very interesting anti-rain tech with the Hurricane Iron Jugulus with knockoff. It's actually a very interesting tech team, but unfortunately, the freeze on Dragonite actually made it not work out as well as it could have. Very unfortunate for Masskeauuu, but fortunately that is the game of Pokemon, and Dieu Amphibian will take the W. So, yeah. But yeah, this team is actually really unique and actually really interesting. Actually did quite a bit of work with the Iron Jugulus. But yeah, I guess Iron Jugulus is like an anti-rain measure for Masskeauuu. Very interesting. I wonder how it's supposed to do against Fire, because Fire is another brutal matchup for Flying to deal with. Wonder if this mon also has something for that as well. We'll have to see later. But yeah, move on to the next match. That will be between Adjustments and Chaitanya. Chaitanya is bringing a excuse me, a Fire team against Adjustments' Ground team. Now, this matchup is actually pretty even because of how ridiculous Volcarona can be, but because Adjustments is able to contest the weather, Adjustments may be able to have a good advantage here, but it all depends on how Chaitanya plays their Heatran. We shall see. We shall see. Alright. Oh, and an instant Earth Power from the Landorus. Instant crit Earth Power will do a ton of damage to the Volcarona. Subsequent one will not be able to KO, as Volcarona is now faster. Adjustment's still looking to get that KO, but it will not happen, as Volcarona is going to keep using Warning Zone. The Will-O-Wisp coming through. The Will-O-Wisp that actually is pretty common on Volcarona. I've seen quite a few top players use it lately, as the Flamethrower will come through. Earthquake not doing that much due to the fact that Cloudsire is burnt. as Morning Sun does come through again on Chaitanya's side. The Toxic will slowly whittle away at Chaitanya's health, as I believe Chaitanya switched to Chatelier, along with adjustments. Nope, Chaitanya stays in. The Flamethrower burning the Hippowdon, and Excadrill coming in, but now Chaitanya will likely sack Ninetales. Yeah, Ninetales comes in. Excadrill no longer has that access to, or no, Excadrill still has access to Sand. But yeah, Great Tusk will come in. It looks like Great Tusk is Choice Scarf, as yeah, the Sun boosting the photosynthesis. Again, this is one of Fire's weaknesses, because Great Tusk now has the photosynthesis boost. So yeah, Great Tusk gets swapped out. And now the Sun is no more. We will not be seeing the Sun, and we will also not be seeing Sandstorm for the rest of the game once it ends in the next 4 turns. Psychic is used by Landorus to pop the Heatran balloon. Lava Plume is used to do a decent amount of chip to Landorus, but not getting a burn, which may have been what Chaitanya was looking for. Earth Power does get the KO onto Volcarona, critting again, but this time it doesn't matter, as Pyro Ball is used by Chaitanya's Cinderace into the Clodsire, as Clodsire does take a ton of damage. Clodsire will be KO'd. Great Tusk now comes in. Heatran comes in, but is unfortunately not able to take the Headlong Rush due to its balloon being popped. Sarilege is coming in to look for a reverse sweep. Summer Stance very likely going to be used here. The Bitter Blade likely coming out. Yes, Bitter Blade will KO the Excadrill, and I believe, yeah, Poltergeist does not KO Great Tusk. Wow, Great Tusk is really bulky. But yeah, Sucker Punch easily read by adjustments, but the Pyro Ball will still connect. This is a very brutal late game situation. Ooh, Great Tusk surviving the Sucker Punch by 1% HP, granting adjustments the win. Ooh, that was a nail-biter match at the end, but adjustments was able to get that W. But yeah, you can see how annoying Fire can be. Because Sarilege was actually very poised to just win the entire match there, but thanks to Great Tusk's immense bulk, it was just able to tank its Poltergeist. The Poltergeist being its strongest move that it has access to. So yeah, actually really surprising that Great Tusk is just easily able to take that at full HP, but yeah, I guess that's just how good Great Tusk is, and I believe that's also another reason why it's run a lot on these ground teams, and why it got really popular in NWP. But yeah, that will be that for this match. Adjustments, this team isn't really unusual. It's standard fare for Sand. And Chaitanya's team, I mean, do I need to say anything? Let's move on to the next match. Luisin versus Memphisdepayy. Memphis is looking to use a, not quite the triple Cantonian bird, but we are seeing the Articuno, who has recently fallen off in popularity. So, interesting that Memphis is bringing it this time around. Maybe he felt like it was the only mon that could do the job for this specific team. We'll have to look at the sets. But Luisin is looking to use a Darkrai team, or not really a Darkrai team, but a triple threat team with Spikes and Hazard stack. Now, unfortunately, Hisuian Samurott Spikes are going to be useless in this matchup, but Hisuian Samurott is still a slightly decent mon, even without the Spikes pressure that it grants, so Memphis still has to be a little bit careful with the mon, but it is one of Luisin's biggest threats is semi-neutralized. I wouldn't say threats per se, but one of his biggest strengths on his team is semi-neutralized by the flying typing. But you have to remember this comes at the cost of Greninja and Meowscarada just being menaces to all of their Pokemon, so let's see how this goes. Alright, Greninja is led as Landorus comes in from Memphisdepayy. Tinglu coming in on the Landorus as Articuno is brought in. Articuno is swapped out immediately as Memphisdepayy gets the Toxic Orb Poison on Gliscor. Gliscor outspeeds and Toxics the Tinglu. Gliscor now taunted, can only Earthquake, as the Earthquake doesn't do that much damage to Meowscarada. Meowscarada going to look for a triple Axle here. Nope, instead it goes for a Thunder Punch, which does a ton of damage for Corviknight. Corviknight does wear down Meowscarada quite a bit though, as the Rocky Helmet will break it through. Articuno now coming into the Greninja, easily tanking that Ice Beam. Critical hit as well, but still tanks it very easily. Freeze Dry is used on the Darkrai, as Darkrai does take a decent amount of chip. Darkrai, having knockoff though, will brutally cripple the Articuno as it now can't come in on rocks. Thunder will come through from Darkrai, getting the paralysis as well. Dark Pulse is going to probably get either a flinch or a paralysis, but that does not happen, thankfully. Articuno looking to stay in for as long as possible. Because, yeah, Luisin actually doesn't have many switch-ins to Articuno's Freeze Dry. But Darkrai does look to use Ice Beam and Thunder again. As Landorus comes in. U-turn KOing the Darkrai. As we do see Dragonites come back in. Or not come back in, but come in. Mandibuzz uses U-turn to break the multi-scale, as we do see the Dragon Tail come out, so it's definitely the fat Dragonite set. Foul Play not going to do as much as it could, due to it obviously being the fat set, and Mandibuzz is brought out for Greninja. Greninja going to look to use Ice Beam again, but Ice Beam probably going to see a KO this time, yeah, because of the rocks, and yeah, just like that, it's over. Yeah, losing the heavy-duty boots actually completely messed up Memphis' game here. And yeah, the Darkrai having knockoff isn't super uncommon, it's actually relatively common. It's a relatively common adaptation that a lot of Pokemon have been using recently, actually. Hoopa Unbound has also been using knockoff a lot. And yeah, Darkrai is also another example. Just any mon that has access to knockoff that can somewhat run it or afford to run it just runs it, because the move is just super powerful in this generation. Because remember, there's no items that can't be removed unless you have Sticky Hold, so just removing an item from any Pokemon is just so valuable. Which is why Darkrai, Hoopa, and other Pokemon have started to use it. But yeah, that will be it for this match. Nothing much to say here. Memphisdepay's team actually would have been really well equipped to deal with this Dark team, due to Articuno walling most of the type, and Meowscarada just being easily worn down by Corviknight and its Rocky Helmet. And Freeze Dry, Loki has no switch-ins once Darkrai and Meowscarada are worn down a little bit. So actually he was in a really good position if they didn't get paralyzed by the Thunderer, and if they also didn't lose their heavy-duty boots, but it is what it is. Let's move on to the next match. Ethereal Sword versus Fusien. Fusien is using a Steel Team with Hisui and Goodra, very akin to MWP, as Ethereal Sword is opting for a Thunderous Therian team, which is very unusual. But Thunderous Therian is a very scary special attacker, so we'll see how well it does into this Steel Team. Unfortunately, Hisui and Goodra will be putting a wrench into some of its plans, but we'll see if it's still able to do as much as this. Also, this is the first Steel Team we've seen that doesn't use Scizor. It's looking to use a MWP core that was popular at the time, so let's see how this goes. Gliscor can still perform a miracle, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. Ice Spinner instantly used by Dragonite in front of the Iron Treads to try and remove the balloon, as we do see Gliscor come in and proc its Toxic Orb, allowing it to start healing from its poison. Knockoff is used on the Archaludon, removing the leftovers that would give it consistent recovery. Meteor repeatedly used, and Fusion actually getting the critical hit that they needed. And that is actually big news for Fusion's team, because now, without Gliscor, half of the Pokemon on the team are not as easily walled or threatened. So Fusion can now just do a lot of nonsense against Ethereal Sword's team with his Archaludon fully stacked. Or not fully stacked, but well stacked on stamina stacks. As we do see Dragonite use Roost in front of the Body Press. Body Press still doing a bunch of damage. Body Press has more PP than Roost, obviously, so Fusion can afford to keep spamming the move as many times as possible. Dragonite will get multi-scale proc, or multi-scale back after getting full HP, as Body Press will be not very effective against Enamorous due to quad resisting the move. Enamorous will be using Moonblast, lowers the Goodra special attack, but unfortunately that will not be enough damage to wear it down significantly, as we do see the Thunderbolt come in. Sorry about that, I had to take a step away for a little bit, but I don't remember exactly where we were because my thing ran for a little bit, but we'll just start back at this turn. So yes, Archaludon will be using the Body Press. We already saw this, so Namorous is brought in, Fusien Goodra is brought in, takes that, and now Corviknight uses U-turn on the Goodra, confirming to Qwily, as Dragon Tail is used again on the Dragonite, destroying its multi-scale, as Corviknight does come back in. Fusion will go into Heatran, as Corviknight gets the defog off, removing the hazards. Archaludon coming back in, as Dragonite is put in as well. Dragonite swapped out immediately for Namorous. Fusion immediately getting the rocks up, as Namorous looks for the Earth Power, but unfortunately will not find that the Earth Power will hit anything. Skarmory using Whirlwind to drag the Namorous out, as Body Press is used to do some damage. Thunderbolt on the Dragonite will get some damage done on the Skarmory, as the Paralysis stun will finally come through on Ethereal Sword side. Roost is used again, but Roost uses are starting to get very low on the Dragonite, as it does take the Draco Meteor thanks to multi-scale, but again, the Paralysis will come through, not allowing it to heal to full again, and yes, the double Paralysis will maybe seal the Dragonite's fate, as Thunderous now comes in to tank the Body Press. Namorous, very obviously Scarf, does take the 25% from rocks. Goodra coming in as a response, but unfortunately Namorous will be KOing itself and bringing Dragonite back to full. Ice Spinner is used, but the Rocky Helmets and Skarmory's nature are just going to make it impossible for Dragonite to break through, as the Whirlwind is used. Corviknight coming in, maybe looking to get rid of hazards here, as Gholdengo does come in as a response. U-turn is used. Thundurus does have heavy-duty boots. Thunderbolt is used, but does not do much damage to Goodra. As I said, that would have been a prime time for Thundurus to start doing its nonsense, but unfortunately, Fusien Goodra does kind of just stop in its tracks. As Thunderbolt is used on the Corviknight to bring it down quite a significant amount of HP, as it does get the Roost off. Thunderbolt is used again. Roost is also used again. Thunderbolt is also used again, as Defog finally goes through and removes the rocks from the Ethereal Sword side. Thunderous Therian comes in, Volt Absorb, giving Thundurus back its full HP, as Corviknight comes back in, and Goodra is probably going to Dragon Tail, as it does. Skarmory comes in, Ice Beam is used, Brutal Freeze, but Instant Thaw, so thankfully there is no need to worry. Roost is used, but Thunderbolt barely not KOing. Actually, Skarmory living at 1 HP and is able to KO Goodra because of that. It could very well have been a roll, I'm not sure for sure, but definitely very unfortunate for Fusien. Corviknight coming in, as Iron Treads will get the Rapid Spin off. Iron Treads not really going to be able to do much against Corviknight, but Corviknight is running out of Roost uses, so it only has 5 left, so it needs to be careful about what it needs to do next, as U-turn is used to pop the Iron Treads balloon. This would be great if he had Gliscor, but unfortunately Gliscor is gone. Ice Spinner is used, Corviknight taking it very well yet again, as Roost is used by Ethereal Sword. Archaludon looking to get rocks up again, as it does. Body Press is used, and Rocky Helmet does reduce a significant portion of her Archaludon's health. Thunder Wave is put on the Corviknight, leading to some yellow magic that could happen. As Thundurus is put in again, Draco Meteor going to be used. Thunderbolt will be enough to KO Heatran coming in. Heatran is unfortunately, I believe, a Choice Scarf on this set. As yeah, we do see the Power Gem come out. Gholdengo coming in, but Corviknight not able to get the Roost that it needs off due to the yellow magic. Roost is used this time, but I don't think it'll be able to heal very consistently against, especially when it's paralyzed against a Gholdengo. U-turn is used by the Corviknight, but it cannot come back in, as Thundurus is able to come in, only doing a whopping 42% to the Gholdengo, as Dragonite now comes in. Hex doing a significant portion of its health, but the Earthquake will get the KO. Fortunately, Iron Treads is still faster, and Corviknight can't come back in. So, yeah. Fusion will win the game here. Very well done to Fusion. But yeah, that'll be it for that match. Ethereal Swords team, very interesting. Thunderous Therian could be a potentially decent anti-meta pick against electric weak teams, since there are quite a few electric weak teams out there, but Raging Bolt is subsequently making that something that people are going to be prepping for in future weeks. So yeah, we'll just have to keep an eye on how that does. I don't think it's going to be the meta on flying, but I could be wrong. As it does offer another electric immunity as well as another offensive threat, but Thunderous's move pool is notably very lacking, so yeah, you gotta be careful with that. But yeah, let's move on to the next match. You have LBN versus Shiba. Actually very shocked that Shiba is playing Gen 9, but here we are. We have another Tinkaton Fairy team with a Azumarill this time around. And Shiba is opting for Galarian Moltres Flying, which we did see in the past before, and it looks like it will be supported by a Fat Gyarados and Skarmory. So let's see how this match goes. Water Main is a big threat for Flying to deal with, but with Galarian Moltres it could be a lot easier. Here comes a Tinkaton, getting the rocks up instantly against the Flying team, which is very good. Knockoff will be used on the Azumarill as the Citrus Berry is removed, but Elian does not really care for the Citrus Berry, as he will be using the Belly Drum immediately and trying to go for Sweep. Azumarill probably going to take a lot of damage from the Skarmory. The critical hit on the Skarmory, actually I don't think the crit mattered since he ended up going for the Oxygen again. If the crit had done 1% more damage though, that could have been massive for it, as we do see the removal, the Intimidate from the Fat Gyarados coming through. Alright, Gyarados is getting the KO onto Azumarill, but Azumarill has blown the game a little bit open, as removing Skarmory this early is very good, especially against a fatter flying team like this. Alright, Agility is used by Shiba, as the special defense is worn down. Fiery Wrath going through, but because it's a special move, Pickpocket will not do anything. Chesto Berry is removed though, and that will be very bad for Shiba because it looks like they may have been relying on that for recovery, as the Kitan Hammer is used but doesn't do enough damage to really concern Shiba, as we do see the Gliscor come in. Heterin coming in as a response potentially to the Gliscor, as Shiba switches out to Corviknight. Heterin also swaps out and goes into Klefki. Looks like they both swap out again, and Gliscor is put in. Klefki getting a singular Reflect Up as Iron Valiant comes in. Iron Valiant will be losing its Life Orb, which could be very important. Gyarados not actually having heavy duty boots, so maybe it's not the fat side like I thought. But it does have leftovers, so we'll see how this goes. Waterfall is used, but does not do a ton of damage to Iron Valiant, as Iron Valiant is looking to get as many Swords Dances as possible. Shiba, unfortunately, DCs. That is very unfortunate, but looking at the match right now, I don't know what moves the Iron Valiant has at this point in time. Obviously, it's going to be physical in some sort of way. Maybe it's looking to get KOs on Gliscor and Corviknight. It can definitely KO Galarian Moltres, but I think it would just end up KOing this, but getting outsped and KO'd by Enamorus, who I assume is probably Choice Scarf, and would just use Scarf Moonblast to KO it. So I'm not sure why LBN is setting up this much here, but yeah. Unfortunate that Shiba did end up cutting out, but it is what it is. But yeah, let's move on to the next match. We have Qwily versus Neko. Neko using a Scizor Steel team, and Qwily using Standard Dark with... Oh, not Standard Dark, I'm sorry, I did not see you there, Weavile. But yes, we do see a Weavile taking the place of... Actually, Dark has so many good mons, it's actually not... We actually don't know what it could be taking the place of. Looks like it's taking the place of maybe Dark? No, it's not Hydreigon. Hydreigon's on Dragon. But yeah, Weavile is here. Very unusual, but Weavile does have that good niche at just being a really good mon at dealing with flying, since it is uniquely an Ice type on the Dark type. We'll just see how this match goes, though. Alright, Darkrai is led into the Arkeldon, as Arkeldon is Choice Scarf and gets a Brutal Draco Meteor onto the Darkrai, opening up this match wide open, as Darkrai is now 6% HP already. Corviknight does swap out in front of the Mandibuzz, bringing in the Heatran, Heatran getting the Stealth Rocks up, and Mandibuzz popping the balloon, but also pivoting out into Tinglu, who will probably end up doing a lot of progress here. We do see the Stealth Rock come out immediately, as it appears Tinglu may be lacking the Whirlwind due to Scizor now coming in and removing Mandibuzz's Heavy Duty Boots. 62% removed from Scizor's health bar, though, as it stays into the Mandibuzz, and Mandibuzz uses Foul Play. Roost is used by the Mandibuzz, as we see Heatran come back in. Heatran taking damage from U-Turn and bringing in Tinglu. Tinglu will be getting some of the spikes up, as Corviknight using Body Press. Gholdengo coming in as the spikes are used. Trick is used by the Gholdengo and will end up crippling Tinglu and not allowing it to select its moves freely. Heatran is used. I just realized the mods on Neko's team are all named after Kirby bosses. That's very cool. Hydro Pump misses twice on Greninja, which is very unfortunate for Qwily, as those Hydro Pumps are very important because... Ooh, the Battle Bond on Qwily, though. I was completely absent-minded to the fact I was distracted by the names on Neko's team. I did not realize that this Greninja was actually a very rare Battle Bond set. Very interesting. But yes, Greninja is battle bonded right now, and it does a ton of damage with those Hydro Pumps. It will get KO'd by Scizor here, who barely lives from the hazards on 1%. But it does look like Neko is not in a very good spot due to the Battle Bond Greninja just tearing through her entire team. U-Turn is used by the Mandibuzz, as Mandibuzz I don't think can come back in because I think it lost its Heavy Duty Boots. Yeah, it lost its Heavy Duty Boots. Iron Treads comes in to the Meowscarada, as Neko will remove all those hefty hazards, and also get the speed boost, which is likely what they actually use it for. Heatran, I'm losing my mind. Mandibuzz comes back into the rocks, but is able to take it relatively well. We have Corviknight coming back in. Whirlwind will bring back... I almost called it Fan again, Iron Treads. Corviknight coming back in from Neko's side again. Mandibuzz will be sacked for tempo on Qwily's side, as Corviknight will get a little bit of leftovers chip. Healing. Meowscarada coming in. But unfortunately for Neko was predicting a Thunder Punch here, but unfortunately Meowscarada almost completely griefed that entire match, but thankfully it does hit 2 triple axles this time around, as Meowscarada will get the win, and Qwily will win the match. Yes, the Battle Bond Greninja actually blowing up in Neko's entire team, especially since Arkeldon was gone already. But yeah, very well done to Qwily. And the Battle Bond Greninja is actually quite nice. It looks like Qwily may have brought Weavile as a somewhat safety measure against flying, in case the Battle Bond Greninja didn't do enough damage. But yes, the Battle Bond Greninja actually very interesting metagame call out, because Greninja typically isn't that useful and has been like falling off recently a lot in higher level play, but maybe with this Battle Bond set, it might see some life come back into it. Definitely not as good as its peak, but it definitely looks like it could bring some life back into that Pokemon, since it is being dropped as Protean user by Meowscarada, but yeah, we'll see. This was actually a very well constructed team, though. I like this team quite a bit. Very well built by Qwily's team. Alright, Hemi versus Vodoom. We have a sand ground team with Ursaluna into Vodoom's semi-standard dragon team. Actually, I can't even call it standard. It has Dragonite and Pyram on the same team. That's very unstandard, I'd say. But, yeah. I mean, I don't really have much to say. This is just a very interesting match to watch, or it's going to be a very interesting match to watch, but we'll see how this goes. Let's see. We led with Mamoswine, or sorry, we led with Latias, and we switched into Goodra. Goodra instantly getting destroyed, by the way, by the Earthquake, which is an insane call out by having to do that really early. Raging Bolt also just gone already. Pyram will come in, but yeah, Mamoswine is going to easily take that due to its thick fan ability. Opting to swap out immediately, predicting the Latias instantly. Hammy is on fire with the predictions. Scizor probably trying to call out the Latias switch in, but it will handily also get rid of Dragonite's multi-scale. Lander is coming back in, as Excadrill will come in. Ice Beam will go through, as Archaludon comes back in, tanking the Iron Head from Excadrill and getting a stamina boost from it. Clodsire will come in, as Kyurem comes in as a response, or possible prediction. Ice Beam will be used, but not to KO, as the rocks will come up. Dragon, as we know, is going to struggle to deal with those rocks. Mamoswine coming in, and as we know, Mamoswine can survive that Ice Beam from Kyurem. Not that it mattered, because it ended up outspeeding it anyway. And we see Hippowdon come in. Psychic is used. Hippowdon falls. Excadrill now comes in with full pressure, as we do see the Iron Head come out again. Landorus coming in to tank the Draco Meteor from Archaludon. Archaludon in a bit of a rough spot here. So we do see the Latias come out. Does he use Earth Power? Nope, Gravity is used instead. But unfortunately, Landorus is not faster than Latias, so we will see the Psychic come through. Now, Gravity with Ursaluna in the field, there's nothing on Vodoom's team that can survive. Oh, I thought he was going to use an Earth move, or sorry, a Ground move, but they did not end up using that, as Archaludon is able to get the KO. We do see Landorus. Alright, Landorus uses Rock Slide to try and catch the Dragonite. Dragonite is at full HP, but loses it anyway because it's in rocks. And this is obviously a Choice Band set. 1% HP, Living with a Dream, and Hammy does get the KO. Very insane plays and bold moves by Hammy at the beginning of the match, but simmer down towards the end. But fortunately, yeah, this is what I was talking about with, well, with Sandless Ground is very easily blindable into stuff like Dragon, but even with a semi-prepped Dragon team, because Kyurem is on the team, the ground just has Mamoswine as a stopgap for it, and it still instantly threatens a lot of the stuff on Dragon as well, so... I mean, as you saw, Goodra just completely got eviscerated while a bunch of other types struggle to do the same. But yeah, solid play by Hammy in this match. Let's move on to the next. Froll 1 versus Kev. Kev is using the Sandless Ground team. And, okay, sorry, not Sandless Ground. I keep saying Sandless Ground every time I see Great Tusk, but no. The Sand Ground team with Froll 1 using Steel. So... and it's going to be Scizor Steel. Scizor Steel actually, suspiciously, is very good against ground due to Scizor just being a hard mon for ground to take down, and the ground not really having a ton of steel resists outside of Excadrill and Iron Treads. which Scizor can just KO because it has access to close combat. So, well, close combat and superpower. But yeah, it could be a very rough match for Kev to deal with, especially late game because Scizor is just that big of a threat. But as we have seen, Great Tusk is very bulky, so it could turn the ties if Scizor gets chipped down and it remains at a healthy HP. So let's see how this goes. Alright, Skarmory is led, goes straight into Goldingo to block the Focus Blast from Kev, as the Make It Rain will connect onto the Clodsire, doing a whopping 41%. Skarmory comes back in, and Landorus comes in. Landorus immediately using Gravity, as Heatran is put in. Heatran will perish first. Iron Treads coming in, outspeeds Landorus, so the knockoff will come through. Eject button is removed, unfortunately ruining some of the momentum Kev may have been looking for there, as Great Tusk comes in. Headlong Rush will connect onto the Skarmory, as it does a whopping 71%. Skarmory will heal off most of that damage though, and also do some chip to Great Tusk. Great Tusk is going to... Kev looking for a potential read, but unfortunately not getting it, as Skarmory will put down a singular spike that does quite a bit of progress. Iron Treads comes in, once again threatening out the Landorus Therian. No, Incarnate, sorry. Ice Bear used, but to no avail against the Hippowdon, as Hippowdon will slack off most of its HP back. Landorus coming into the Skarmory, free Gravity here, I believe. Nope, Kev instead goes for the instant Earth Power to remove Goldingo from play, as we do see Iron Treads come out to remove Landorus from the match again. Clodsire will come and take the Ice Spinner, not very well, as we'll get 2 KO'd. But Hippowdon does come in. Clodsire not going to be able to come in again, due to it being at 14% HP, unless they somehow manage to remove these rocks. Slack Off is used as Iron Treads is slightly walled by this Hippowdon set, but only because it has access to Body Press. And Body Press is used, but does not do much to Skarmory, since Skarmory has a lot of defense. Slack Off is used by Hippowdon again, but a full 3 layers of spikes has been put down on Kev's side. Mamoswine comes in, taking a fourth of its HP bar. Icicle Crash coming through, no flinch. Wrist will be used by Skarmory again, as Arcaldon comes out. Arcaldon easily, not so easily taking the Icicle Crash, but is able to survive and get a stamina boost. Clodsire going to get KO'd on the spikes, as rocks are put up by Arcaldon. Lots of hazards on Kev's side. We see the Focus Blast used on the Arcaldon, as... Oh, Kev was looking for a read on Iron Treads there, but Froll was not going to have it, and instead opts to sack his Iron... or not his Iron Treads, but his Arcaldon for it. Skarmory will come out, but Skarmory will not get much done, as full hazards are already up, so it's just looking to wall. As Landorus does use Gravity, Whirlwind is used, bringing in Excadrill, and that is not the Mon that Froll wanted to bring out, as Excadrill will use the Earthquake, but fortunately it does come up short on KOing. Great Tusk, however, will come through and get the Headlong Rush off. Balloon cannot be activated in Gravity, by the way, so the other Mon is also threatened here, as the Bullet Punch does come through. Now, this is the late game scenario we were going to be very scared of, because Scizor is very scary against this team right now. I don't think Kev has a way to deal with it. Scizor is not Trailblaze, thankfully for Kev, so Iron Treads does come out. Ice Spinner will be used. Slack Off will be repeatedly used over and over again, as the Ice Spinner will keep going through, but it just does pitiful amounts of damage to the Hippowdon. Kev even opting to get rocks up at that time. Now, unfortunately, Kev may have been a bit too greedy here, as the Hippowdon will fall. Landorus is not faster than the Iron Treads, and yeah, that'll be it. But yeah, as I said before, late game Scizor against ground is just very, very tough to deal with. But Scizor didn't really do a ton, but that pressure that Scizor just could present due to its presence forced Kev to play a certain way, and it's just very hard to play around for ground, especially if you don't completely obliterate Steel at the beginning of the game. So yeah, it's very brutal that this happened, but well played to Froll for playing through this win condition. Both teams are relatively standard as well, nothing too unusual, but yeah, just another point for Scizor. And let's move on to the next match, or the last match, which will be ImprobableBlob versus Fiend, Arifeen. Arifeen will be the only person this week that has used Ghost, at least in SV monotype. And ImprobableBlob is also the only person that is using Fighting in SV monotype this week. So this will be an interesting matchup. Now, as someone who used to use Fighting a ton, I can tell you that Ghost is very annoying as a matchup because Flutter Mane kind of destroys your entire team. Your best way of dealing with this matchup is to make sure that you use Iron Hands and Sneasler very properly, and using your Gallade as well as you can. Because Gallade can take one of Shadow Ball or Moonblast and get a decent chunk of damage off the Flutter Mane. It can potentially KO it too, but you have to wear it down. It's very, I wouldn't say it's super Ghost favored, but it's definitely very heavily sided to Ghost. It's not like Ghost instantly wins the matchup, but it's definitely very easy for Ghost to win. I don't know. I don't know what the best way to describe it is, but it's slightly Ghost sided, I would say. But Fighting can absolutely still win this matchup. So we'll see how this goes. Both teams are relatively standard, by the way. Nothing to really comment on there. Iron Hands will be taking a Poltergeist, revealing the Shuka Berry. That's typically a set that's run on Electric more often. Not really Fighting, but Fighting can also use the set very well, as, you know, Iron Hands is crucially weak to Earthquake, and being able to take an Earthquake from something like Excadrill, for example, could easily turn the tide of a match, especially if it uses Drain Punch. Fortunately, Rumbleghast will get a singular Spike, and Flutter Mane will get KO onto Iron Hands, as Gallade will get the Qwily Berry, actually preventing Gallade from getting the KO and taking an additional 37% damage, which is not something you want to take, especially against a team like Ghost, as Seraphz will come through. Seraphz probably using Sword Stance here, yes, or Shifu will prevent it from being able to sweep. Shadow Sneak will be used, but Surging Strikes, as you know, will break through Sash. We have to set through the little cutscene though, as yeah, that will KO Seraphz. Flutter Mane comes in. Are we Choice Scarf? We are not Choice Scarf, as Aqua Jet is used. Flutter Mane will get the KO onto Urshifu as Gallade comes in. Gallade will not be able to survive this Moonblast though. However, Fiend decides to switch out. Yeah, and it's because Gallade did have the Shadow Snake. Great Tusk coming in, but Sucker Punch failing. Ooh, a mixed Dragapult set with Sucker Punch is very tricky on Arifeen's part. But we do see a Draco Meteor come through, doing a ton of damage to Great Tusk, as the Dragon Fang is removed. Spectrier comes in, using Shadow Ball and getting a boost off of it. This is the part where things get scary, because the Spectrier is maximum speed, and Scizor is Balloon instead of Choice Scarf. Iron Valiant coming in, if Iron Valiant maybe being the Choice Scarfer? Yes, Iron Valiant is a Choice Scarfer, but it doesn't do enough damage to KO the Spectrier, as Spectrier is possibly low enough to get KO'd by Shadow Sneak, but yeah, it is not enough, unfortunately. And Pelagrio will run away with the match, and that is what will get you in this matchup. Yeah, the late game Ghost Sweepers are just a bit too scary, especially if your team gets weakened very early. That Qwily Berry actually saved that entire match for Arifeen, because if they not had Qwily Berry, the Shadow Sneak would have probably killed, and that Gallade would have kept a lot more of its HP, which would have allowed it to do a lot more in this match. Unfortunately, that did happen, so it is what it is. But yeah, that will be it for this week's MPL 12. That will be the overview. All the comments I have to say is that, as we've said before in the metagame preview, Scizor is very common on Steel. And we do see a lot of Hydreigon as well. Not as much as I thought we were going to see, but it did show up quite a bit. So I can't wait to see how the Hydreigon sets start going. Like I said, my speculation is that it is something to use against Gholdengo specifically, as Gholdengo can be an annoying mon for Dragon to deal with. But we'll see as the weeks progress how much more that will matter. And hopefully we do get the sheet soon so I can talk about the results as well. Even though it's only a week, it still would be nice to know. But yeah, I'll see you guys next week. Have a great day.